Hey guys, it's Crazy Cubing, and today I'm going to be showing you some 5x5 tips for beginners. This is my first 5x5 that I got on Christmas. It was one of my first cubes, and I always wanted to solve it, but I thought it was so big and impossibly hard. I finally memorized it not that much later, and then I could solve it in about 10 minutes. But along the way, I did discover a lot of tips that made me get down to about 5 minutes with the first method. And now I use this cube, which is a magnetic cube and a lot better. And I average about 3.5 minutes. Still using a method very similar to what I used when I first learned, actually. So today I'm going to be giving you tips for the method that I still use. So if you're a beginner cube solver, first we're going to want to talk about finger tricks. Now this actually applies to every cube, even a 3x3, but a lot of people think you're supposed to turn a Rubik's Cube like this, with your wrists, and with your hands, like this. And that is not actually correct. What you want to do is you want to put your hands like this, and you want to turn like that. So you're going to want to put your thumbs on each edge and turn like this, use this finger, and turn back down, instead of doing something like this. It's a lot faster and it takes a lot less effort. Same thing goes for a 5x5. You're not going to want to do this. It takes a lot more effort. Instead, you're going to want to turn like this. Or sometimes turn like this, just depending on how you're holding the cube. Most people who are beginners are going to solve with the white center. So what you might have learned is to make a white cross like this. And then take this edge and put it like there, and then fill these in like you would on a 3x3 like that. And if you're a beginner, that's okay, but I think that it would be a lot better if you did something like this. So you look for a piece and you try to connect it, and then you look at these two pieces and you try to pair them up like this, and then you look for another corner. So I see this corner in the middle, and I pair it up like that and put it in there, and that's what's called bar building. Now this actually is something we do on 6x6 and 7x7, and that is actually a big part of making the centers. And advanced cubers also do that on 5x5, but instead of building the cross, you're going to want to do that with your first center, just like that. Pair them all up and move them in, and that's your first white center. And then we're going to want to do the yellow center second. Usually that's about the fastest way to do that. So if you're a beginner, what I would suggest is to do something like, kind of like the bars, where you make a first and middle bar like this, and then you look at these pieces, pair them up like that, but instead of just moving this, because that would go like that, we turn that away and turn it in like that, so that this stays preserved. So we can just do the same thing here, pair these up like that, and then we look for the other yellow piece, so it's right there. We can just turn it like that and move it in there, and then turn this face, and then instead of just doing this, we would do this, so that it preserves that. And then after we do that, we're going to want to look at these colors. Now if you see chunks of pieces, you're actually going to try as hard as you can to keep those two pieces together. So instead of maybe doing something like this, which they would stay together, but you're going to want to build in blocks. So if you want to build in blocks, you're going to want to do something like this instead. And then if you do that, what you can do is you can look at these two edges, and you can turn this up, move it in, and turn it back down, just like you would with the beginner's method, but this is a more efficient way of doing it. So we take that edge, and we put it in like that. And then we can see these two corners, so we just put those in like normal. And then that would be the center. Then we're going to want to do the one across from that. So if it's green, it'll be blue. So we're going to want to, instead of just doing this, because that would mess up the green, we're going to do the same thing we did before. So we're going to turn it like that, turn it in line, and like that. And that's already the cross and the blue side. Then we just need to put these corners in like before. So we do RW, U, RW prime, U, RW, U2, U prime. Or RW prime, sorry. And then same thing. And then we're down to our last two centers, where this is where it starts to get fun. So what you're going to want to do is look for colors that are already paired up. So I actually have an L case where I have a lot, and you're going to want to look for a corner. Now when you have a corner, and this applies to every center, but when you see a corner, you're going to want to move that up so that it stays, so that corner will pair up with that red, and then you turn that way, and you turn it back down, and that will give you a full red bar. So we can just do the same thing here. The red bar is there, and then we have this corner, so when we turn this corner up, it'll touch those, and we can bring it back down, and that is everything but the corner. And then we can just solve the corner like before, but with double moves, and that's our centers. So yeah, this helps. This helped a lot for me. It originally took me like, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes, 4 minutes to do the centers, and now I can do it in about 1 or less. So yeah, pretty good. Next is edge pairing, and this is even more complicated, but it's not too bad. So normally what you would learn from a beginner's method is to look for colors like this, and you would want to do 2. So you would say, oh, I see a white green, I'm going to look for a white green. So let's see, where is that white green? And this would take a long time. You just look around for the piece. Oh, there it is. So you'd want to turn it in there, and then you would pair them up using this algorithm that's from the beginner's method. Then you'd be like, okay, now I have those 2 there. And then blah, blah, blah. Oh, I found this one. And then you would insert it with an algorithm like this. And that's one edge. That took about 30 seconds, so it'll take 6 minutes. No, that's not what you want to do. If you're a beginner, what you can actually do is you can just look for, so if I want to make the blue and white edge, and I see a blue and white piece here, instead of looking around the cube to try to find the other blue and white piece like that, see it's right here, instead what you're going to want to do is find the middle edge, and you're going to want to make sure the middle edge is the same color as this, and line it up in a position to where this is across from this, and they're the same color. So if you do that pairing algorithm, then you'll get something like this, where this one's right and this one's flipped, and then you put the other one there, so like that, and then do that again, and it will solve the entire edge. So that takes a lot less moves, and it is so much faster to recognize. So here we can see red, green, red, green. We can just turn it like this and pair those up. So they're like that. And then there's another one there, so we can just look at this, pair this up with those, and that's how you do it. And then if you still have a case like this, which you will get sometimes, you can just solve it the beginner's way. So you can do this, and it'll solve that edge. Very simple stuff, no extra algorithms you need to learn, and it will actually make you so much faster. So again, look at these and make sure they're the same color. So green, yellow, pair them up. So one's flipped, one's correct, and then look for the other green, yellow right there. And that will solve the edge. So you just keep repeating this until you get to your last few edges. So there's another one right there. Where's that other one? It's right there. Pair it up. And then we have 2 that are like this. So we just insert it. And then we see this, and look at these. Another tip is, while you're doing the algorithm to solve the edges, look around the cube to see if you can find any other edges to match up, which this is called look ahead. It's not that important in the beginner stages, but I found that it does actually make a really crazy difference when you're turning fast and you're looking around the cube. Trust your muscle memory to take care of this, and make sure you look around the cube. Don't really rotate it, just kind of look around and see if you can find something while you're solving these. So if I see the white red here and I want to solve this, so it's like that, I can just do the algorithm, then I can look around the cube. So maybe I want to look for the yellow red, and I look and I'm like, okay, so the yellow red's right there, and now I can just move it there without pausing, and then as I'm solving that, I can be like, okay, there's the other yellow red, and turn it into position. And then as I'm solving this, and maybe look for orange green, so there's an orange green piece right there. And then we can look for that orange green, it's right there. And this is where your last step comes in. So you may have a case like this where you have you're down to your last two edges, and you might have this like this, what you want to solve, and then you have the piece like here, so it'll just solve that, and then these two are already solved. So when these two are already solved, then this one is always going to go into this spot and not flipping. So if I were to solve that, it would just solve everything. But let's say I get a different case where they're none flipped and it's like that. If you were to pair these up, it would actually create parity. If this one's not flipped, then it will make it flipped. So it would do this. And that's where you get this. And then you would just do your parity algorithm from the beginner's method to solve this. So it would go like this. And it would solve everything. Another thing that is important is if you already have two paired up like this, where they're none flipped, and it's just like that, then you can do this. Turn the cube like this and hold this to your left, and then have this piece to your right. And you would do the same algorithm, and that piece will actually go into that slot. And it will actually move this piece, whatever piece was here to here, and this piece to here on this edge. But it will also solve this edge, if that makes any sense. And then from here, it's just 3x3 stage. So you would just solve it like you would a 3x3. I'm using my method to do this, but the problem is you can't really plan out the cross because you don't have inspection. And for more advanced cubers, that is a reason to switch to Yao method, so that you don't have to plan out the cross, so it's already done. But I currently just use reduction for 5x5, so I do not plan out the cross. So I just kind of look at it for a second and try to think of something. I'm probably going to try to change that because that's not a very good habit, but I'll try. Alright, and the very last tip. If you're using a cube like this that's not magnetic, it's kind of like a beginner speed cube, it's not that great, then if you're really needing an upgrade, if you think you're fast enough, I suggest you get a good magnetic cube. Now this particular cube is called the YJZ Chuang Mini, and this one costs about $15. It's a pretty great cube, but it is kind of small, as it is just a little bit bigger than your average 3x3, and quite a bit smaller actually than an average 5x5. So for a good price, you can get this, or you can get the Meilong M 5x5, which is also really good. It's a normal size, but it isn't as good as this probably, but it's still pretty good, and it still has a good size to it. This one is just kind of small. And then if you want something more expensive, the YJ MGC at $22 is actually pretty much just the best 5x5. I mean, there is the Volk 5M, which is also really good, but it's going to be discontinued soon, and it costs $50. So I'd recommend the YJ MGC, or the Meilong M if you're more on a budget, or this if you have smaller hands. I think the YJZ Chuang Mini is a great cube. It's pretty fast on the outer layers. The inner layers are a little slow, but that can always be fixed with some lube. And very last tip, most important of all, practice. So practice everything I have just said. Make sure you watch out for any mistakes you might be making, and if you know you're making a mistake, try to think, I shouldn't do that. And every time you make that mistake, think, I need to stop doing that, and then you'll eventually probably get out of the bad habit of it, and practice will just make you so much better. I mean, I practiced all this stuff. What I use as my main method is actually very close to the, not really beginner's method, but really close to what I showed you, and I can average like 3.5 minutes on 5x5, which is pretty good for using that method. I might switch soon, just because I really like 5x5, and that's not very fast. But yeah, practice and apply everything I've just said to your solves. JPerm also has a tutorial on this, so I recommend you go check his out. It's pretty great, and I recommend you check out any other tutorials. If you're still confused, then just watch some other tutorials and you'll figure it out. So yeah guys, thanks for watching, have a great day, and we'll see you next time.